Welcome to session 4 of Living from the Inside Out. And what we're going to talk about in today's session is the difference between intelligence and intellect. Now, I come from a family where intellect was really highly valued. My mom was a professor of organic chemistry, the degrees from the University of Brussels. My brother went to MIT for physics when he was 16. My sister went to Harvard. And so in our family, we grew up really leading with our intellect. And because we had well-developed intellects, we did well in the world. And I remember when I first started to quiet down, when I first started to see the inside-out paradigm and how my experience was being created all the time from the inside out, and that I was always living in the feeling of my thinking, not the feeling of the world, my intellect started going crazy. Because it's like, well, hang on, what about me? You know, I've been running the show all this time. You know, this stuff, it's all getting a little too quiet in here. Let's go out and study something new and learn something new and master something new. And I carried on like that for a time until I remember talking to somebody who did this kind of work, you know, worked with the inside out and the 3 principles. And she said to me, well, I can't help notice how busy your mind is. And I said, my mind's not busy? What do you mean busy mind? I don't have a busy mind at all. In fact, since I've started studying this stuff, my mind's slowed down completely. And she said, well, it might be slower than it was when you started, but to me, it still seems like it's going really fast in there. And I kind of thought, well, hers is just too slow. That's the problem. And anyways, it's the speed of my thinking. It's my ability to think like this, that's been my edge. And as we kept talking, something happened. At one point in our conversation, it just got quiet up here. The thinking settled. It wasn't something I did, it wasn't something she did. It's just natural. Our thinking settles when we aren't doing things to rev it up. And when my thinking settled, I was overwhelmed by peace. I was overwhelmed with a beautiful feeling. And it got really, really quiet. And I realized that it had been years since I had felt that way, since I had felt that much peace, since I had felt that calm. And I loved it. And I loved it so much that I thought, okay, you know what? If I have to become an idiot so that I get to feel this way, maybe that's a fair trade. But what happened really surprised me. I actually started becoming much less of an idiot. What actually happened was I spent so much time revving up my intellect that I was continually lost in thought. So I was continually not noticing what was going on around me, and I would bump into things and bump into people and get into arguments without even really knowing what was going on. Because what was going on in my head was so busy that I had no awareness of what was going on in the deeper feeling of my life, in the deeper feeling of my experience. And when it started to quiet down, I found that instead of getting stupider, I got smarter. But it wasn't that my intellect had changed. It was that I had opened my mind up to a deeper intelligence, what I'll call the innate wisdom that we all have access to. And it's that innate wisdom that in your moments of insight in your life, and maybe there's only been 2 or 3 that you can think of, but those moments where you just suddenly knew to do something, maybe to make a change in career, maybe to make a change with your partner, maybe to make a change in your life. You just somehow knew something you couldn't possibly know. Well, that was that deeper intelligence of life, the intelligence of mind coming through. And I sometimes think of it like a pipeline for fresh thought. That our mind is this pipeline. And when we don't have it all clogged up with all the noise in our head, when we're not thinking about this and thinking about that and trying to work out this and trying to work out that, this deeper intelligence can come through. Our own wisdom can come through. And instead of having, 1 or 2 insights in a lifetime, we start to live insightfully. We start to get messages and whispers and insights and fresh ideas on a regular basis. And once you start having those insights, there's no going back. People sometimes say to me, well, I'd like to be able to trust that, but I don't know. I'm going to hang on to my intellect because I'm not sure about that. And my experience, I totally understand that, but my experience is different. And an analogy I'll sometimes share is, imagine that you're an art dealer. And imagine that some eccentric millionaire comes to you and says, I want a Picasso. I really want a Picasso. Here's what I want to do. I'll give you as much money as it takes if you can source me a Picasso. But I don't want just any Picasso. I want one that hasn't been on display. So you do your due diligence, and sure enough, you track down a Picasso. You track down a Picasso that's been privately owned by a family in Amsterdam, and it's going to take a couple of weeks to establish provenance and to get it shipped out. And it's going to be a $30 million transaction, and you're just pleased as punch because you've figured out your commission on this, and you're going to do very well. And so for a few days, you're just excited. You're in the feeling of that thinking, but it's great thinking, so you're really enjoying that. And then it starts to dawn on you, well, what if the painting doesn't arrive on time? What if it's damaged? What if it turns out not to really be a Picasso? And you start to kind of get insecure, and you start to worry, and you start to panic, and you start to have a lot of thinking, and you can't get hold of the person that you bought it from because they've gone away somewhere, and there's no way to track it. And so you just have to wait because it's either going to arrive on Friday or it's not. Now, if you imagine that scenario, and you imagine all the things that you would think of to try to do, I'm going to guess that one thing that wouldn't even occur to you is on Thursday night, it would never even occur to you to run downstairs, grab an easel, and try to paint your own Picasso in case the original doesn't show up. Well, when we try to work out our life with our intellect, it's like trying to replicate a Picasso. It's trying to create, like an impression of what intelligence would offer. Because that's what intellect is. It's almost like a reflection of the intelligence of life, and it can be incredibly useful. I haven't really given it up. We still can discern. We can still be critical. But when that faculty becomes something that's used by this deeper intelligence and wisdom that comes through us, instead of the thing that's trying to run the show and control the whole game and, no, we've got to figure it all out, we start to have more and more insight, more and more fresh thought, and we literally begin to experience our own personal genius, except it's not personal, it's almost impersonal, because it comes through us more than it comes from us. And it's just a natural function of living in a quiet mind and a beautiful feeling, which are the default settings for human beings. Because like we've talked about, when we're not revving up our thinking, trying to work everything out, trying to figure everything out, our thoughts naturally settle back down, and we naturally drop into our innate well-being and our innate wisdom, into a state that we could call meditation. Now, this is why meditation has been so popular throughout all time in different cultures, is because it's been the only way that people have known to access this deeper intelligence, this deeper mind, this deeper connection to the principles behind our experience. But there's something really interesting. There's a big difference between the state of meditation, this place of quiet mind, beautiful feeling, what I sometimes call the space where miracles happen, and the practice of meditation, which sometimes will take us to that place. And sometimes we have so much thinking about our meditation practice that we actually get more riled up trying to meditate than we would if we just went for a walk, if we just grabbed a cup of coffee on our own once in a while, if we just allowed ourselves to drive with the radio off, and just notice that when we're not doing things to stimulate our thinking naturally settles down. We drop back into a natural state of meditation, and we gain instant access to a deeper state of wisdom and a deeper state of mind. And so I've got 2 homework assignments for you from this session. So the first one is, share a story for you of a time where you were lost in thought. You got so up in your head that it had real world consequences. And then the second thing I want you to do is just for a little while, just as part of this inside out experiment, I want you to see what happens if you don't fill in the blanks. If you let yourself stay in the unknown for longer than maybe you would have in the past, and let yourself not know what to do, not know what to think, not have it all worked out, and see what starts to come through. Because I promise you what will come through is that deeper wisdom and that deeper intelligence that's a part of our natural birthright. Have fun, learn heaps, and I'll see you in the next session.